What's up, guys? Welcome back to a Modern Craftsman Monday.
Monday. It's a
Monday.
Saturday night.
It's Saturday night.
People are gonna be like, "What? Saturday
What?
night?
I
What's
thought it was
happening?"
I thought it was Sunday.
Just tripped out, man.
We have this insanely wild,
Insane.
talented guest today.
It was insanely insane
It
this
was
week.
insanely insane. Oh yeah, it was insane. We don't have a guest this week. Just the week was like
Mo
Tyler said.
Yeah. It was extra. I think that's what the kids say.
Yeah, this week was so extra.
Extra.
So extra. Um, what did we chat about today?
We dig into, Nick
Furniture repairs.
furniture repairs, people who don't charge enough for their work, on-site furniture repairs, um, Jessica specifically, Jessica,
Alternative finishes.
alternative finishes. So shout out to her. We talk about, we crap on the industry a little bit,
Mm,
right? We talk about
towards the end, yeah.
how it's easier to market yourself well than actually do good work.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
then what I really like kind of kicked off the conversation with, so Nick started 16 new companies since the new year. He launched 2022 with the announcement that he started 16 new companies. So we dig into each and every one of them.
Yeah, 16 would be a lot. I've been
To
filling out paperwork since January 1st for 2, so 16, I don't know.
be like
I
8 times as many.
It would be like 8 times as many.
Mm, it's a
Mm.
lot.
Alright, well, let's get into that conversation. Before we do, thank you to our sponsor, Duration Molding and Millwork. So, I actually wanna talk about a story real quick. So, we are doing our small projects division is doing a restoration project in the south end of Boston, and all of the exterior trim has to be replaced. So, we had originally specified, "Hey, this is all gonna be Boral." It got denied. Reached out to
Really?
Keith. It did. But I reached out to Keith and I said, "Hey, have you guys done historical stuff?" He goes, "Are you serious? We did an entire, like, historic church in the south end of Boston." And come to find out, the girl at the Landmarks Commission was, relatively new. I sent her, "Hey, this church is all Boral." She goes, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm new here." I'm like, "No worries." She goes, "I just know we're not allowed to use plastic." I'm like, "No, no, no. This is not plastic or PVC. This is fly ash," which I don't know why I told her that, because she's probably
Yeah,
like, "I don't know what fly ash is."
yeah.
But it's
Well,
a
dude,
byproduct. Go ahead.
so I think what trips a lot of people up is that technically it's a composite material. So like they hear composite, um, and I think that your head goes to like
Mm,
decking or
right.
like well, I guess I shouldn't name brand, but like I
The
think that
T word.
a lot of people's head goes towards like plastic.
Mhm. Yeah, and ultimately it's not. It cuts like wood, paints like wood, shapes like wood. It
Doesn't rot
it
like
but it doesn't rot like wood.
unlike wood.
It's you know, I'm a huge wood, you know, supporter. Like, I think that if I wasn't using a quote unquote composite like Boral, it would be wood. I wouldn't go to a PVC.
Yeah.
But Boral has obviously proven itself in its marketplace. But they manufacture all the clapboard siding, moldings, trim, and then also Boral has the true exterior square S4S stuff. It's just a great product. So make sure you check them out. Durationmillwork.com. And also brought to you by Reno Run. So Reno Run, we talk about this every week, but I'm using it. My entire team is using it for those last minute deliveries. Um, I used to get an email at 1 o'clock in the afternoon saying, "Hey, you know, I would actually never know. This is the most annoying part about Home Depot is that I would get the last four of their credit card, like, hey, some, you know, 1109 went to Home Depot at 1 o'clock. So it's like, do I really want to look this up and find
Yeah,
out
who
who's
it
at Home
is.
Depot right now? And I did. So finally, I wrote it down in my notes so I could see like who's going there. But that has significantly decreased with Run a Run because we're just hopping on the app, ordering what we need. It's there in 2 hours. We are getting coffee. I did confirm that. We're getting brought
Are
not
you?
my coffee.
Yeah.
But the guys are getting coffee. Um, and now they're talking about doing bigger orders, doing full takeoffs, getting into the larger orders. They have boom trucks. I think they have Moffat trucks, but they're in Boston, Philly, Chicago, Canada,
Canada, America's
and
hat.
um, I've never heard that.
I'm pretty sure it's something like that. America's hat or something. I'm pretty sure. I hope that's
That's
not, like,
amazing.
derogatory to Canadians,
All right.
those
Well,
Canucks,
they're al they're also but Canada's big too, so, like, we should figure out where in Canada they
the
are.
big hat.
I know,
That
but
is
they
a
can't do the whole
large
they're not doing
hat.
the whole country.
It's gotta be, like, a full brimmed, like, top hat if it were a hat.
Oh, I
'Cause
didn't picture any other hat.
oh. Um, I would assume Toronto.
Yeah, I think you're
We'll have
right.
to look it up. We should probably look that up,
Let's
being
look it
that
up. I'm
they're
gonna look it up real quick.
our sponsor.
Well, before I do, if you guys want to, we'll pay your delivery fee. Podcast.rentarun.com/modern craftsman. We will pay your delivery fee. Uh, go to that website. Make sure you check them out. Also check them out on Instagram. All right, locations. Make sure I'm not misspeaking here.
That it's
So it doesn't even list Canada.
Oh. I feel
Oh,
like
you know
that's where
what?
they started. You're
I
probably
know, but
in North American. No, they're Canada's North America, but it's
no,
not.
but you know what? I think I'm in like the US site. I
Yeah.
don't know how to get to the Canadian site. All right, let's just stick
.ca.
.ca.
I feel like that isn't that like I feel like this is getting bad at
Dude,
this
you're right.
point.
You're
Is
right.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm from Canada originally.
It just asked me to
People in
confirm my
Canada probably
location.
hate me right now. Um,
So, Montreal and Toronto.
yeah.
Alright.
So they speak French and, English.
They do.
Have you ever been to Montreal?
I haven't been to Canada. I don't I've never been outside the country, which
Well,
every
that
time I
would
say that, I'm like, "Ugh, I need to get outside the
yeah,
country."
that's interesting. Uh, I heard Montreal is very cool. My wife has been, she loved it. A bunch of kids in high school went to Montreal because 'cause I'm pretty sure the drinking age was 18.
18, yeah, right.
So they went for New Year's, New Year's in Montreal, but I did not go. I was wrestling and was not able to go party in America's hat.
Before be before we get into this, podcast, do you think you could take Jake Paul?
No, he's, like, in shape.
Mm. Do you think you could have taken him in college?
Maybe in my prime.
Mm.
Yeah,
He's
he's a
such an
tool.
interesting
He's a
person to me.
tool.
Oh, totally. But he has obviously made a very, big name for himself. Alright, let's get into it.
Alright.
What a week.
Yeah,
So
I
it
know.
is I don't even know what day it is. Is it Saturday night?
Saturday night fever.
Saturday Saturday Night Fever.
So how's COVID?
One bad day. It was, pretty brutal. Brutal in the sense of being annoying. I had one bad day where well, I've been testing, like, literally for weeks, every single day. Her mom dropped off a bunch of rapid tests, and I was able to kinda test just I wanted to make sure I was safe, obviously, with the break and the kids in school and me going back to the office, and Sunday night, we were out, and I was like, "Man, I kinda feel funny." And I was like, it has to be exhaustion from just, like, kinda partying and having a week off with the kids and just,
Yeah.
like, not in a routine. Go to bed, wake up, feel fine, go to the gym, feel fine, go to work, feel fine, and then all of a sudden I start coughing at work, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be here." And I had tested that night, I'm like, but it came back negative. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna leave, and I had to go to a couple meetings, and I'm sitting in a coffee shop to take our team meeting in the afternoon. Dude, I coughed and I couldn't breathe.
Really?
Like, straight up, like, to the point where I almost shut my laptop and left the coffee shop to go outside to, like, have a cough attack. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going home." So I go home, take a test, positive. I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Oh my god, we just went back to work, and there was, like, people in my office, and now I feel terrible." And so I let my team know, and they were all like, "Alright, yeah, understood." Um, None of my family has it. To this day, it's been 8, 9 days. No one got it except for me in the house.
And you've been around them?
My
I mean, you
I
watch the
haven't
kids.
Yeah, but we haven't separated at all.
Yeah, so that's
Like, so I
crazy.
like, me and Meg slept in the same bed, like, the kids, like, yeah, no one got it. So, I was like, "Alright, hopefully my team doesn't get it." Wiped out Ken.
Oh,
Like,
did it?
like, Ken's like, "Dude, I'm not like, this is not good." And like I said, I had one bad day, but other than that, it was, it just was like a mild cold. But I went right home, right to bed. And Ken said the same thing. He goes, I couldn't even eat dinner. I went right to sleep. But it's just annoying because it's like we just launched the two other companies, and I'm working from home.
Everyone was just off.
Everyone was just off, and it's
You
like, and
can't
then Meg
send the kids to school.
canceled the kids' school. Meg had this trip booked, so she was negative, and she felt fine, so she went anyway. And and the moment she leaves, Indy's got a stomach bug. I'm like,
That's the way it works.
Meg's like, "How's it going over there?" And she, like, it was on FaceTime. She's like, "I'm just asking to be nice. I'm sorry." I'm like,
That's
I mean, it's fine, but it's just like this is a wildly ridiculous situation right now.
Yeah, we had the girls ready to go back to school 5 AM on Monday, get a phone call that school's canceled because of snow, that we never got any snow. It was like a
Ah,
half
that's the
inch.
worst.
Yeah, and, like, it's like, whatever. So ever ready to get them back to school. So Monday, it was like, "Nope, they're staying home." And then Friday, what's today? Saturday? Yesterday, we
Mhm.
got probably, like, 5 inches of snow. So school was canceled yesterday too, and I'm like, "What the heck is going on right now?"
Do you remember being a kid? It's like, you didn't know if school was canceled until, you were
You
up, dressed, ready for school, and waited for that thing to show up on the screen to say that
Yeah,
school
you
was
would, like,
canceled.
watch your school number or, like, you could
Right.
call in and see. Yeah, now they
And it's like
call your
n
phone.
but not even that, it's like they're canceling school before the weather comes.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'm sure I get it. It's probably logistically makes way more sense, but yeah, we were supposed to get, like, 2 to 5 inches, and we ended up getting 12 inches.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I mean, it's gone, like, it's basically like, I'm looking out on the streets are totally bare. Like, the cars, like, our car, because I didn't go out yesterday, has snow on it, but
Yeah.
it's like, it'll take 2 seconds to clean off. The worst is, like, I'm in Southie, so people have spot savers, and
Yeah.
it's like, "Yo, buzz off. You did not shovel your car out." Like, that's not a le and my father came in today to visit the kids, and he's, like, parked in a bus stop. He goes, I couldn't park anywhere." I'm like, and I look out, I'm like, "There's a spot right there," and he goes, I'm like, "Oh, there's a metal black can in it saving that spot because he drove away from it." But whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, my, that used to happen in, like, South Philly, and
Mm.
people were getting shot, like, fighting over parking spots.
I don't know about anyone getting shot around here, but someone posted on the community board that his Jeep literally looks like they smashed his windows and then filled it with snow. Like,
People are
I was like,
insane.
"What?" Like, crazy, but I don't know. Alright, well,
I shoveled this
today
spot out, it's mine forever.
right, yeah, exactly. Well, so I guess they launched a site, I forget what it is, but it's like it's something about, like, letting you know whether or not spot savers are okay. Because like, the city believes in it to a certain point, and it's only, like, I think it's emergency I think it's when it's a state of emergency when you have to pull your car off all the main roads
Yeah.
so they can plow. and I think it's only 72 hours from that point. Either way, it's like people will literally leave a lawn chair in that thing until the snow's freaking gone,
Yeah.
and it's like you I remember, like, I've never partaked in it or partook in it. Is that
Partook? Yeah,
partook?
I think
And,
partook.
over where we used to live, and I left one day, and I just throw it in four-wheel drive and bomb out of the spot. I came home, and there was a cone in that spot, and I'm like, "That" and I see the kid, and he has a Jeep, and he gets out, takes the cone, puts his Jeep there. I'm like, "Bro, you didn't shovel that.
Yeah,
Like, you can't claim a
that
spot you
spot.
didn't shovel." Like, I I don't I either dreamt that I took the cone and threw it over the fence, or I did. I probably dreamt it because I probably was like, "I'm not dealing with it dealing with my truck being keyed," but I
Yeah, in
don't know.
South Philly, it's like a big deal, and I guess everyone lives in those houses forever and knows each other, and they all have like their normal spots as is.
Mm,
And then South Philly started kind of blowing up, and there's people renting, and they're like people coming in who don't know the unwritten rules, and it
right.
was like seriously people getting killed over it. It's like,
It's
damn,
dude,
at a parking spot.
dude, life
I hate going into the city to try and find parking for, like, that reason. It gives
mm,
me so much anxiety. Not that, like, I'm not gonna find a spot. It's like, did I choose the right street to go down, and what if one opens
right.
up as soon as I pass it, and the whole time I'm just like, "I'll just pay for parking."
Yeah.
It's not even worth the anxiety.
Yeah, I hear that.
So
Boston, I feel like Boston's so different, but
yeah, what about, 2 new companies for
yeah.
you?
So we split the millwork company off. It's funny, so many people reach out. So, we had Ken on our this podcast, years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And in that conversation, I think John may have asked me, "What about would you ever consider a partnership?" And I, like, immediately answered, "Partners are for dancing," like a total asshole.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I think it was like a knee-jerk reaction because I had not given it much thought.
Yeah.
And, so yes, Ken and I are now partners in the millwork, eating my words, very much, you know, very much so. Um, and so that's super fun.
And
It
you
can't
dance
well, and I dance,
with
but I don't make
Ken.
any money at that yet. Um, but yeah, we just wanted to expand the company. I wanna be able to grow that as its own company and not just be, delivering product for NS builders. Because him Ken I'm saying Ken, but, like, the shop rides these wild ups and downs based on, like, how much millwork we need.
Yeah.
So, we wanna open that up, and we have been talking to other builders for a while and, have had some strategic partners put in place, and, we had a target for
As
the
far as
year.
far as, customers,
Yeah.
like
So, like, other like, local builders,
yeah.
local like, designers, like, "Hey, we're gonna be doing this thing. Are you interested?" We actually had one builder reach out, like, as, not realizing that we were gonna be offering it, and we just signed a contract with them for a really cool kitchen. Um, so I'm excited. I think it's gonna grow faster than Ken and I thought, especially since we're already almost blowing our year goal as far as, like, how much work we wanted to do.
So what
Um
so right now, for people who don't know, you've been in the same building for 5
Mm,
years?
yeah, 5 years.
And it's
We have
pretty
a year
small.
left. It's 2,500 square feet
Like,
with
it's always been a little too small for whatever setup you've had, like, you've kinda
yeah,
made it work, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, the office is
you're
too
gonna have to
small
move.
now. We are. I am actively looking to buy a building,
Mhm.
um, that is too big so I can then lease it out and hopefully cash flow it so we can basically buy the building under whatever, like another LLC, and
Yeah.
then lease it to, Materia, lease a portion of it to NS Builders, you lease a portion of it to Motif Media, and then hopefully lease it out to other people. So then, it's it's a good investment. I don't want to lease again, so Ken and I are kind of on the same page in the sense like we'll probably wait it out as long as we can, but our goal is to purchase something or have a new location before the end of 2022.
Okay. So within 12 months, have
Yeah.
something sorted out or figure out where you're gonna be. And then, um, so your goal is to get something big enough that you can kind of have all the companies in that space, then also lease it to somebody else to offset some of that cost until you guys potentially grow that you need the entire building?
I don't know if we'll ever need the entire building, depends on how big it is.
Yeah.
I think the shop realistically well, who knows how big the company will grow, right? If it turns into a monster, that's a completely different animal, but we keep thinking that 6 to 8,000 square feet will be good. However, if this takes off and we all of a sudden turn into a 20-person shop, we're looking at, you know, double, triple that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, depending on the location of it, it would be nice to have everyone under one roof, but if location, pushes us outside the city, I would probably look at, office space in the city and a shop outside the city.
Because your shop's outside the city now.
It is. It's just it's like literally in the only direction that we don't work.
Yeah.
Like we'll work north, we'll work west, and that shop and the shop is south. And it just doesn't it is strictly there because of the financial benefit of it.
Are you guys looking to switch to finishing in-house or still not yet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So
Mhm,
right now, again, for people who don't know, you're fabricating cabinets, breaking them down to whatever is necessary for transportation, if at all,
mhm,
sending them to finish,
mhm.
packing them back up, then delivering them.
Yeah. It's a lot of moving around, assembling, unassembling. Oftentimes, it doesn't get reassembled until it shows up on site, which
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of, um, because it doesn't always get 100% assembled prior to finish, which I'm also not a fan of, but especially recently with hardware and material delays, we're running into situations where we can't. So we have to we end up assembling it as far as we can, sending it out to finish, getting on site. For example, we're doing a small kitchen right now, and we had 2 doors that were, missized, and whatever the reason was, I would attribute it to the fact that it was because we didn't have it 100% built in the shop, like,
Yeah.
assembled, like, it was a dishwasher panel. So, like, if we had that dishwasher in place and all the hardware on, we would have caught the discrepancy.
Yeah. And that it's I mean, so you have companies, right, who are doing finishing for you that hopefully you do enough work with them that they're like, "Yeah, we can squeeze this back in." But realistically, for some people who are just ordering kitchens from other companies or don't do a ton of work that they have that much pull, that could be like 8, 10, 12 weeks where you're waiting for one
Yeah, so
cabinet or like one fix, which
well,
was the
that's
timeline
the
for the whole
issue.
kitchen.
That's the issue. Like, we have I would say we probably have, like, 3 or 4 finishers, but we have one that we go to on, like, the regular, like, that's our main finisher, and we work with the schedule, so it's like they know when the stuff's coming in. Hey, we're starting fabrication. We have 4 weeks of fabrication. Our delivery date will be, January 8th, whatever it is, right? So we'll commit to that date and they'll commit to when we have it back. But that's fine. Like, okay, it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks for finish. Like we build that in, but what you said is accurate is like the moment you need like one piece sprayed or like a repair made, that's where it bogs down where it's like
Yeah.
crap, like we got to send that back, has to be refinished. And sometimes, yeah, they're like, no problem, we can get that right in. But when you get into custom colors, it's like they got to change the whole gun, they got to change all the color. Like it's not as straightforward. So, I mean, I love our finisher. Um, like we love our finisher, and like they do a fantastic job.
And they have a Christmas party.
They have oh, did you come to that?
Yeah.
I forgot about that. I was so looking forward to going this year too, but I don't think they had it.
I guess that was
Um,
2 years ago.
that it was 2 years ago. So this is we're literally just bullshitting right now, but do you remember the girl
Yeah, it was
that worked there? I
yeah.
forget what
I told
conversation came up when we were there, but we talked about I had the, like, Home Depot, like, how to fix your house book.
yeah.
So I found it in my, like, pile of books at home, so I signed it and sent it to her.
I I forget what I had told her when I was there. She was, enjoying herself at the party, and I wanna
She's
say
great.
that it was something along the lines of that, like, I had some sort of farm animals or, like, kept them, and she was so intrigued, and it was just
Yeah,
completely made up, and then that was just how she knew me the rest of the I can't remember exactly what it was 2 years ago at this point. Um
but they're great people, and, like, we've developed such a good relationship with them where it's like, it will be bittersweet not to work with them, where
Yeah.
it's like, we want it in-house, but we really value the relationship. But I don't know, we'll see how that pans out. Maybe, we do a tremendous amount of business with them at this point, so who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I also think that, even bringing finishing in-house, there's a huge, like, massive learning curve with
Mm,
that. Who you're hiring, what materials you're shooting, just that entire process. There's a huge learning curve. So, even transitioning into that, there may be jobs where you're like, you know what, this job has to be
right. Dead on, like, yeah,
110%. We're not gonna risk that learning curve
it's a great
on this
point.
project, or like a specialty finish where, it's gonna be like, this is not worth our time sorting this out where we know these guys can knock this out of the park. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's one of those relationships that's definitely good to keep around when you need that, because I mean there's finishes where it takes years and years and years to be able to be decent at them. And it's like, investing that in an entire project where you're just not there yet it's almost setting your guys and girls up for failure.
You know who I think of when you say that is, Bespoke
Yeah.
Woodworks. He always talks about the professor, and I've met the professor. Like, he's, an older dude, and I always say, like, What are you gonna do, like, when he wants to be done with this?" And he's like, "I have no idea." It's like, you can't, there's not a lot of kids out there that wanna to learn it, or even wanna invest the time. Like, that guy will sit there. I remember him matching a sample for us, and he's sitting there, he's like, "Nah, it needs a little green." I'm like, "There's what? Green?"
Hmm.
And I'm looking at him like, "What green are you seeing?" And he dumps a little drip of green in it. He's like, "Alright, this is better." I'm like, "I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm not seeing it."
It's insane. Those people, I guess it's just like anything else where the more that you do it,
Mhm.
you see the layers. And it's when you're looking at that, if you don't have the experience, you're looking at that, whether it's a door or a panel or a color sample, whatever, you're looking at as a whole. But those guys and girls who have finished for that long, they understand like what that raw wood looks like, and then how many layers there are, and getting to that finish where like they're looking at it as a
Mhm.
more practical approach. Like, this is the species of wood that we had, and this is now what
Right.
it looks like. How am I going to get to that? Where we're just looking like, oh yeah, it's just a color. Like, what color does this look like? But they're
Yeah.
like, no, like I know how this wood
Yeah.
plays with these colors and the tannins in the wood, which is just doing it over and over. And then it kind of comes second nature to you, but you have to learn it at some point. And typically learning it is by banging your head against the wall.
Dude, I gotta give a shout out to this girl, Jessica from Alternative Finishes. She does a lot of our faux painting in Boston. She does some wallpaper. She's also helped with stain and stone correction.
Is she an old
Sh
fine? Is she do fine paints, or is she like from the Fine Paints of Europe like
Yeah,
group?
yeah.
Yeah, my buddy Lou from Pen Painting was telling me that she works with you a lot, and he's like,
Dude,
she is like so talented.
she wildly talented, and, like, she is so humble, and
Yeah, she like works by herself, right?
I hope someone tells her to listen to this because, like, we'll exchange we actually exchanged texts, and she had probably done a half a dozen projects for us, and I had never even met her.
Mhm.
And finally, I met her on our recent, Back Bay project, and she just, like, whatever you throw at her, like, we had a stone cut. It was a Caesar stone for I forget which one it was, but when you cut it, the end was, like, pure, like, tan when the top was all, like, figured.
Yeah.
So she came in and, like, faux painted the whole end, and it looked wildly perfect. Either way, she has done some plaster repairs for us. She's done faux painting for us, and I've seen her like she'll make a swatch, right? Like say it's 12 by 12, and you see the steps she takes. And it's like, 50% this, 50% that, dried for 20 minutes, and then the next step. And it's like
Yeah, and it's always so
that's
they can go back,
of
like, if it doesn't
course.
work out, so now, like, okay, I still have the first 6 steps that got me there where I don't
Right.
have to start all over again.
Like, that I don't know if I'd ever do that. I would I'd be sitting there like a like a
Get
mad
super
scientist, like,
impatient.
it's like, "Alright, how'd you get there?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I got it."
Yeah. It 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 is crazy, and I was so Lou painted a job for me recently where, one of my return customers, new house, trying to get in, I don't have the manpower and the time to be there doing all of it, so I'm subbing some stuff out, and I was talking to him, about the podcast, and he was telling me about this lady, Jessica, and that she works with like by herself, that she's super intelligent, just you know extremely smart, but also has like the artistic ability to be able to kind of fix anything, and she's the go-to girl up there and lady up there in that area, for kind of getting people out of these pinches and binds that they may be in. And we were talking, I guess it came up because we were talking about even like wood repair, furniture repair, on-site repairs,
Mm,
where it's like it's such a good opportunity for a business if you're good at that. And the
yeah,
I guess a lot of people who transition to that get into furniture repair where like these companies subcontract to them, bigger companies where
mhm,
they ship a piece of furniture and it's damaged or somebody needs repair, and like their warranty department will send somebody out with this toolbox of pigments and like glazes and finishes that they can go into a house, like, without setting up site protection and all, and, like, open up this shoebox with all these different pigments, and then spot repair something, match the sheen, buff it out, and, like, if you were to get up on it and you were like, "That's where the repair is," yeah, you can see it's
sure,
repaired, but, like, as a whole,
mm,
where you just walk into that space, like, you never know it was repaired, and that stuff always blows my mind because it seems so like, knowing even just matching like, burning a sheen into something that's already cured in one spot where you can't tell somebody just put another finish on top of it is so difficult and hard to do, and the guys and girls who can do that stuff, that's something that, like, truly intrigues me, where it's like, I would love
totally.
to just shadow somebody and watch them do that all day
I
long.
two scenarios here I wanna talk about. So, one with Jessica. So, we had this stone installed in a shower, and the veining didn't match up. Like, it was literally 2 inches off. So, it looks like a mistake. It just looks terrible. So, I'd asked Jessica, I'm like, "Hey, do you think you could fake that vein across and tie it into each other?" And here it's a polished stone. I'm like, "I don't know how you do that with, like, getting the depth, getting the polish." She's like, "Yeah, I should be able to do that." So, this was when I hadn't met her either. So, she went on site, took care of it in, like, 4 hours, and sent me a picture. I'm like, "Wow, that looks really, like, really good." So I get on site and I'm like, all right, it looks good from a photo, but like you're obviously going to be able to tell if I put like a light up on it, like the sheen's going to be different because she painted it on top of stone and all like nothing. I had the Festool light on it, and I'm like, I can't tell what's not the
It's
stone and what's paint.
insane.
Why, like, wild. And the furniture thing. So when I was a kid, I remember my parents, like, at one point in my life, my parents spent a bunch of money renovating the house, and they went out and bought all I remember spending days in furniture stores, and they end up spending all this money on, like, not custom furniture, but nice furniture for the living room. They got this, like, armoire. They did all the surround sound. They had all these, like, devices, and the cabinet closed up, so everything was hidden behind it. And I opened the door one day, and I, like, decided to hang on the door, and I ripped the door off the hinge, and my father I don't remember what the conversation happened, but I remember them sending out a furniture repair guy, and this guy took the hinge off, moved it down, like, 6 inches so it could go into solid wood, and then pulled the door off and bondoed it, and this is a stain grade piece of, like,
Yeah,
cherry. He bonded it. I'm like, "This guy, what's this guy doing?" And I'm, like, young, but I'm,
yeah.
like, I'm intrigued.
That's never gonna work.
Yeah, like, I have no idea. And I'm watching it, and he's, like, adding glazing, adding stain, rubbing it out, buffing, and all of a sudden, it's like he's done. I'm like, "Holy shit, you can't see where I broke it."
Yeah. It's it I I don't know. I think that that's something that I really wouldn't get that bored of either because every job is truly
Challenge.
unique. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything and, like, you have
I
to
also think
bring
that the margins are there too, where it's like, just get it done, like, whatever it costs.
dude, absolutely, like, if you think say for simple conversation, it's a vanity and the plumbing's hooked up and the top's on top of it. Realistically, that could get pulled with not
Mhm.
like, it's not like an entire kitchen, right? But, like, think how much more convenient what is that worth it to you if you're the contractor on that job and the customer's making you repair that and you have to send somebody to pull the top and risk breaking it. The plumber
Mhm.
has to come unhook all the fixtures. They can't have their vanity or whatever until it gets pulled. You have to bring it to the cabinet manufacturer or factory, get it repaired, then reinstall everything, all without breaking it and all without creating any sort of issue that now the customer's like, this wasn't like this before. Or you
Mhm.
could pay somebody some absurd number to fix it once and be done with it and not have to do anything. Like you're going to pay that person to go do it because it's
Right.
so easy. You're done with it. Even if it costs you more money, upfront from like a financial it would cost you in the long run to pay all of those people and all the
Yeah.
logistics and the risk involved. It's like, no, I would pay you whatever you want.
Dude, I'm loving this conversation. So, we finished a house 2 years ago, and we installed this marble sink. Cut one piece of marble, it was all carved. It was a $3,200 sink, and probably maybe a little less than a year ago, the client reaches out and say, "Hey, I have this rust spot on" no, less than 6 months ago. "I have this rust spot coming up on top of my marble." I'm telling the story because, number 1, it's everyone should learn from our mistake, but also because it has exactly what you were just talking about, is paying whatever it takes to fix it. So, I go out on site, and I'm like, "What the hell is that? It's rusting, like, there's rust on top," and it's a really nice plumbing fixture, like, it's rusting right around the center
Yeah, and it should be
hole.
brass that's like
Yeah.
not
So
rusting.
I'm looking at it, and I'm like, "What the hell?" So I get underneath it. Holy shit. Someone put a raw steel washer to bolt, because the center hole was actually fake. It was for the sink stopper,
Yeah,
and the sink stopper didn't get hooked up because it didn't have an overflow.
yeah,
So someone, AKA one of my guys, went out and got a steel washer and put it on it, and then just and tightened it tight, just so it wouldn't move around.
yeah,
No, who would ever think about that? And that washer started, rusting because it saw moisture, and that washer rusted and then traveled
like wicked
vertically
all the way up.
2 inches of marble to the surface. And so we did all
So it
of
was
the
just on the stopper thing, like for
it
the
was
back of the
it
fixture?
was on the bottom side of the stopper,
Yeah,
and
but like
and
behind the fixture, like behind the handles or actually where the drain is?
no, like, so I'm sorry, it was like a bridge faucet.
Yeah.
So in the
Oh, okay.
middle, there was
Okay.
like a pull up.
Yeah.
So in that pull up, there was a discussion, and
Yeah.
around the discussion started like having a rust spot. So we go through. I call a Marvel restoration company. They're like, I can come out, but I'm going to charge you a ton of money. So just go to the grocery store, buy this pumice, and buy this and buy that, and put it on and put cellophane over it, and let it sit for 24 hours, and come back and clean it. It will be fine. So I do it. Doesn't work. He's like, okay, you can do this, and it's a little bit more aggressive, and then it'll be fine. Doesn't work. So I called Jessica. I'm like, Jessica, here's a situation. What can you do? She's like, oh my god. I'm like, could we paint it? And I'll grind out the bottom and get rid of the rust so it doesn't continue to happen. And she's like, hold on, I'm ordering this stuff from Canada. It's taking forever because of COVID, blah, blah, blah. She figures out a solution. By the time she figures out the solution, the client was just frustrated
Mhm.
and sensitive to COVID, doesn't want us to come in. She's like, I'm done. I don't want you to repair it. I want it replaced. And I'm like, this is a
Give it
$3,200
yeah.
sink. I'm like, plus the plumber, plus my guys to go there to make sure it gets installed. Like, this is no.
Yeah.
And so I lost, and we ordered a new sink that took 16 weeks to get. And we had the sink in my shop, the other sink in the shop, and it's not a big rust stain, but it's like obvious, like it was a mess up, like
Yeah.
totally, like we're owning it, like, but the lesson learned here is like make sure you're not using steel against
Yeah.
natural materials because it can wick. But I'm very much hoping that I can drop the sink off to Jessica
And
and
fix
get
it. I'm
get
gonna
the
use it on
rust
my
out.
house.
And yo, I'll sell it to anyone who's listening right now. 2,500 bucks. Save you 700 bucks. Brand spanking new. It's great.
Didn't really even have a rust stain, we just made this up for the sake of conversation. It's brand new.
It's
You're
brand new,
just getting
guys.
$700 off.
Maybe I'll do 1,000 bucks off. How about that?
Yeah, I could eat that crap up. It's so like you said, when somebody makes a patch to stain grade with Bondo and you see it initially and there's just that
That pink.
contrast between the 2 materials and you're like, "Nope, not gonna happen." Like, I'd be
Mhm.
so pit and then you, like, see them start layering and adding texture, and by the time they get done, you're like, "Damn, how?" Like,
Yeah.
it and they make it look easy, which
Mhm.
is what's also very intriguing to me that, like, I don't know, it's super cool to watch, and they have this little thing with all the like, it's like a shoebox with pigments and then clear lacquers, and little spray cans. A lot of times it's like Mohawk finishing kits
Yeah.
where I'm like, I thought that that was just, like, crap that you got to fill imperfections when you dinged a piece of wood. Like, I didn't
Mhm.
know that you could actually do that stuff with the but, like, Mohawk makes a ton of repair. It's just so interesting to watch and people do that, and the one time I saw it, um, we had a pretty expensive vanity that was, like, one off, and it was very rustic looking, and it was stained with, like, big box newels on the end, um, and it must have came out of finish, like and the stain wasn't fully cured, and it was
Mm.
going to get the top coat on it, and, like, somebody moved it, and you could see right on the front, like, fingerprints in the stain, and it probably wasn't as apparent until the finish went on there, and I saw it, um, when I picked the vanity up, and they were like, "Listen, at this point, if it's gotta get repaired, it can get repaired in the field as same as we would repair it here," and
Yeah.
I'm like, "How is that gonna happen? I feel like it's here. You could just sand this whole thing down." They're like, "Just take it. If if the customer has an issue with it, we'll get it repaired." And I'm like, "Well, I don't really care if the customer has an issue with it. I have an
I do.
issue with it right now." Um, so I drop it off. My customers, believe it or not, are typically pretty fussy, rightfully so. Like that's why they're hiring me.
I was gonna say
And
that's
that like
who hires you, bud.
right, like that's my perfect customer. So like my customers are very discerning. I drop it off. put it in the garage, and intentionally, I'm like, "Yo, I forget, maybe Steve was working for me." Though it's like, "Let's wrap it in moving quilts. Just like once it's all installed, we'll take care of it. But like,
Mhm.
I don't want the questions to start now."
Yeah.
Sure enough, like 3 hours after delivering it and getting set up for the job, "Hey, there's some, like, fingerprints in the stain from the customer texting me." And I'm
It's
like,
like,
"Oh, it's
"Leave the
already
moving
s
quilts on."
it's already starting." And like, amazing customers, probably some of my favorite people I've ever worked for. Um, just great people, like, found me through Fine Home Building years ago, tell me we'll never hire anyone else, like, just super nice people. But that was the first interaction with them when I went to work for them. I was like, "Oh, man, this is gonna be a long job." But they were great to work for. At the end of the job, the cabinet company sent some guy out, and that's, like, all he does is repair furniture and stuff in the field, and he brought his little box out and fixed a couple of other spots that were, like, concerns for me where, everything kinda tied into it with, like, an apron into the legs with, setbacks and all that stuff, so there were these hard 90-degree angles where when they were either applying stain or finish, it just, like, didn't penetrate the same, so I had him just, like, go and tweak that stuff too, and it turned out looking great. It was, again, one of those things where, like, if I walked into that room, you'd never know. If I was like, "Okay, here are the fingerprints," and you were 2 inches from it, yeah, you could probably pick up on it.
Mhm.
Um, but it was just super cool to watch, and I'm like, "What are you gonna, like, make sure that you set up all this protection, everything's done," and he just came in with, like, a towel, and, had, like, a piece of paper, like, block, because he didn't do anything. Like, it
Yeah.
was so, like, it doesn't affect your work site, or
Right.
the house at that point. It's just not an invasive procedure and process that I was like, "Dude," because I paid him and the cabinet company reimbursed me, and I was like, "Yo, you're not charging me enough for this," which is
Right.
not really me that's paying it, but I was like, I told him, I had the conversation with him, I'm
He was
like,
under $1,000, right?
"Dude, it was like a couple $100, and,
Yeah,
like,
it's
granted, it only
silly,
took
man.
him like 45
It
minutes."
doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
That's
that's
a
what
perfect example of, like, you're not paying for how long this is taking me now, you're paying me for the experience.
exactly, but, like, if I was paying him, I may not have had that conversation with him at the time because I'm like, This is just coming out of my pocket," but since my cabinet company was paying for it, I was like, "Dude, just think about this. If they had to foot the bill to get, you know, the right way to do it, the countertop company to uninstall
Mm,
the tops because they know how to handle it, the plumber to uninstall the fixture, me to pull the vanity, then transport it." I was like, "And now you're gonna tell them it's $350?" Like, if they had to pay for that, do you know how much that would cost? They would pay you so much more
yeah.
than that because you're saving them, at the end of the day, you're saving them so much money and just, like, giving them a get out of jail free card. So, like, I never really looked at it like that, and I was like, "But listen, if I hire you, I want the same type of pricing, but anytime you work for anyone else, make sure that you make them pay."
You know, that
It's really cool.
it's well, I mean, I just think it's such an interesting it's an interesting job, but for me, it's just interesting that people look at like, they're looking at it through different lenses. You
Yeah.
know, like, completely different, like, it's not you know, for me, I'm always the rip it out, go respray it back in the shop and bring it back, where it's like, "No, no, I can accomplish what you're looking for in place." It's like, "No, you can't." Like, I'm a total skeptic when it comes to that, and then the more times I see people doing it like, I'm just not a color guy.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think Ken and I built or Ken and the guys built an office, all this cabinetry for our office, and I think we forgot a piece or we forgot to make something or we made it wrong. So the guys remade it and it was made out of a different sheet of white oak. And they still did the same Rubio finish on it, but it looks completely different.
Way different.
And it drives Ken absolutely bananas. And I'm like, for me, like, whatever, like, it's an office, like, but if that was a client, like, I would have an issue with it, where it's
Yeah.
like, all right, like, we don't have, like, we clearly don't have the know-how to figure, like, how do you combat that? Where it's like, I think the most people would say, no, 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 it's just like, it's wood, so wood takes stain differently. It's like, no, I know that. I'm well aware of that, but there's ways to manipulate the way it takes, and there's
Exactly.
ways to manipulate the color to make sure that everything is cohesive. Like, I had a very difficult client that came back to me and, was mad that the walnut veneer in the center panel didn't match the solid walnut rail and style. Even though they were finished the exact same way, one is, paper thin, the other is solid walnut, so they take
Yeah, I mean,
clear finish very, very differently,
yeah. I mean, think of a hardwood floor. Like, the
right?
amount of variation that's in a hardwood floor because everything's a different cut, everything's a different piece of wood. There's so much
But
variation
there's
there.
ways to manipulate.
Yeah, and, like, the other thing is, I think the people that are really good at that, if they're going to make a repair, they understand how the grain structure and the
Mm,
pores will finish, so they can pick and choose something that's unfinished that they understand will end up taking that finish as close as possible to what's there. And again, that just comes down to experience, right? Like I've stained something that looks like this before, and it's got a lot of this sapwood in it. So I want to pick a piece that kind of matches that, or is from this cut, so that it'll take that stain or that finish the same way. Which it just comes down to, like you said, seeing that from a different lens.
mm,
And it's just having, even think of it in your situation right now. If Ken had to make that repair now, I guarantee he would go and look for a different piece of plywood that was as close to whatever he used in the first place just from experience. Like,
yeah,
"Hey, I know last time we did this, it didn't end up matching," or, "You know what? I'm gonna get a couple of pieces of plywood and I'm gonna put this Rubio on them and see what it looks like before I
right,
make the entire piece out of it and be like, 'Yeah, it doesn't match.'"
right.
Where that's just like, "Yeah, I
And
fucked
that
this up before."
and that's like, and that is a very real, I think that's a real skill set that we could benefit from because everything we do is grain matched. Like,
Yep.
I talked about a kitchen that we're doing that one of the panels got messed up. I had brought up, I was like, "Oh, did you guys remake the panel?" They're like, "No, we can't. It's grain matched, so we had to modify the one we had." And I'm like, "Shit."
Scary.
Like, glad it was too big, not too small.
Yeah.
Like, dang.
Yeah. It's almost like one of those things where, hey, moving forward, it's like, do we wanna save this amount of veneer for this kitchen to be like, "Yo, store this somewhere in case we
Yeah,
ever have to remake something."
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's always just kinda covering your ass.
I wanna I
Um,
wanna I wanna go back to something you mentioned. So, like, talking to that guy, right? Say he charges you 350 and you had said, like, "Hey, anytime you do this for me," I know you're being funny, but this is something that's come up in real world for me where I had a sub, um he wasn't like, there was no discussion of like, basically he did a bunch of extra work on the job site. We never talked about it being additional cost. We never talked about what the impact would be. It was just like, no, we just had to do it. We had to make it right. Like, it is what it is. Like, it'll all come out in the wash. And I refused. I was like, absolutely not. Like, I want you to tell me how much that costs you, and I'm paying you for that. And because I don't find that fair. And it was to the tune of like 12 grand.
yeah.
Like, it wasn't small. Like, it was a lot of, and I think that was his cost. He ended up billing me, and I paid it. And the reason I'm bringing this up is like, what are your thoughts on something like that where it's like, am I opening myself up to be taking advantage of, or do you think that by having more honest conversations and making sure that our partners are paid and treated fairly, that it actually works to our benefit.
I mean, obviously what you did was amazing, right? That's one of the things where if you can do that, you're in the position to do that. That's great. But is that something, did the customer pay for that
No,
for one?
no.
So, I mean, like, did they pay for that
I'll be
initially?
totally no.
You know,
So I'll just be totally be totally honest with honest. So just give some kind of context. It was a plastering sub, and he had done like $12,000 worth of extra plastering because I had asked for the walls and ceilings to be perfectly flat. And when he was going through the place, he called me and said, "Hey, the framing isn't flat.
yeah.
Like, we're, like, significantly out in some areas." And it was, unfortunately, it was some of my guys, and a lot of those guys aren't here anymore, but I had walked through it. I'm like he's like, "What do you want me to do?" I'm like, "I want this t like, we didn't set you up for success, but I don't want that to continue to trickle in that direction, so if you can
Yeah.
correct it, I want you to correct it."
Yeah, so in
So
that situation, like, I think that, you you kind of yeah, like that's the right thing to do. If you did something that impacted and it was your I mean, think of it, if you had subbed out the framing on that and that came up, like I don't think that you can necessarily back charge a sub, but that's a conversation to have where it's like, "Hey, this is what we paid you for." If you were to catch that framing before it got boarded up, you would have had the framer fix it,
mhm,
right? So, like, somebody dropped the ball there, but that's not on the plaster. If the plasterer came in assuming that everything was gonna be flat and then you still made them uphold that standard and it was more
right,
work for them, then, like, yeah, I think that they should be compensated for that. I don't think that they should be smacking you and kind of capitalizing on that. Um, but I think the biggest takeaway there is the conversation, right? And I have that conversation with subs where, listen, if this is going to take more time, or if you run into something, or if you have another job that you feel like you have to get to, at least have the conversation with me. Like, if this
yeah,
takes longer and you're like, "I gotta start another job on Monday," like, come to me and let's figure out what you have to do. If it's you gotta take a week off or go to that job and then come to me 2, 3 days later to
mhm.
fix it, at least let's have that conversation rather than you rush through it the next the at the end of that job and kind of botch that job for me.
I
Or, hey, there's more to the scope of work than anticipated. Instead of you not saying anything and being like, we got to get this done in the same amount of time, like, let's have a conversation. How much is this going to cost?
mhm,
Like, did the customer pay for that level of finish? Do I then want to go to the customer and say, hey, this is what we are running into? Or is that something that I want to pay? Or is that something that we want to split and then make up on the next job?
yeah.
But I think that conversation is what's critical, and I don't think that you're necessarily opening yourself up for anything other than that's the way that you wanna run your business, and that's the relationship that you want with your subs.
I think that the point about is that what the client paid for or their expectation, I think that's huge, and oftentimes, I think that not just myself, but a lot of people, especially listening to this podcast, are probably in the position where they're pushing for a higher caliber than their client is expecting or even will notice, and they're pushing at it at the wrong time, meaning like they're
Yeah.
pushing for it at like, hey, give me a number to paint this place. Great. Here's a contract for $25,000. By the way, I want this to be the best paint job you've ever done in your entire
Or
life.
the
It's like,
customer starts bitching up, and now you're making them, "Hey, you need
yeah,
to do this. This needs to be better. This needs to be repainted,"
exactly.
where
Where it's like
it's like, "We
that
can't have that
wasn't
conversation now." "Hey,
exactly.
this customer's gonna be a pain in the ass."
Mhm.
that's what they're paying us for. Like,
Right.
this is my target customer. Like, if that conversation's at the beginning, cool.
And
But,
it's
like, to
weird,
put
like, I
them
feel like this industry, like, we are we're fearful of having that conversation up front.
well, yeah, it I think that, it's about, like, in the back of the head, a lot in the back of their mind, a lot of guys and girls are looking to land that job, and they wanna land that job however they can for whatever reason, and then they're kind of working backwards. Well, now that I landed this job, what do I have to do for paint? And then they're sorting out the details, and they're like, "All right, this is more than we thought, but we can't really go back now. What are we going to do about this? Or let's try and squeeze this person or stretch that person." And it's all about the expectations. Like,
Right.
we were having the conversation the other day, um, and I mean, it was about paint, but
Mhm.
like, you can't base a paint job based just on the way that the paint job looks, the materials used. Like, you have
Right.
to have consideration for
They
budget
give enough
because
time? Did they give was the budget enough where they could allocate the time to get the yeah.
exactly. But, like, somebody could paint an entire house for 15 grand and get it done in a week and be
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, that's a really good paint job for 15 grand and getting it done in a week."
Right.
Like, and it but if you put that next to a paint job where somebody took 2 months and it
Mhm.
was 5 times, 6 times that cost, yeah, it looks like dog shit. But if you consider the constraints that they had to work with, that's a fucking amazing paint job, but
Totally.
you're looking at it out of context. So, like,
Yeah.
you have to ensure, and that's like the point there is that you have to make sure that that context is related to your customer, and that what your customer wants is what you're selling, and what you're selling is what you're actually doing, because
Yeah.
that's the shit that's not on paper, that's not in the plans, that's what I run into with bidding projects. It's like, the scope is the scope, and even if our scope is the same as the guy next to it, like, all of those things aren't necessarily considered. So that's what you have to ensure, that you're communicating properly. You can't just say that, well, like, you walk in, well, this house is shit. Well, yeah, they also built this for, 1/5 of what they built the house next to it. So, like,
That's a great
that's a
like,
decent house for
that's a great point. Like, I had one of Meg's friends reach out to me and was like, "Hey," and was, like, walking me through her house, and she was like, "What do you like, do you think this is normal? Like, the crown molding corners are cracking and, like, this is like that." I'm like, "Eh, what do you mean?" Well, she's like, "Well, I don't see it in your work." I'm like, "It's
yeah.
just different." Like, and this is the thing. It's like, you know, th construction or home building is being lumped into home building, where it's like, look at cars, right? Where it's like you get in a Toyota Corolla or you get in a Ferrari, like, you're gonna expect different things. If the Toyota Corolla plastic dashboard creaks and cracks when you're driving, like, you don't think anything of it. You
And
hop
you don't
into
really
a
have you don't have a leg to stand on there.
But regardless, like, but then you hop in a $300,000 Ferrari and it's creaking and cracking. It's like, what? I paid 300 grand for this. It's
Yeah.
like your mind has to look the same way. Where same thing with homes, where it's like, and the unfortunate part I think here is that people are paying top dollar for homes and getting a shit product, which is like at the end of the day, it's like I don't know what car to relate that to, but
Dude, that
like
well, that would be like selling somebody a Ferrari and then taking the Corolla and just putting a Ferrari body on it,
right,
right? Where
exactly,
it's like, "Alright, that's fucked
in the
up."
home building industry, I think we're seeing it more than, necessarily the car industry, right? Where it's like you're not seeing a lot of people selling cars at a premium and getting away with shit.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
I don't think so either, but I also think that it's easy enough for people, like, to wrap their head around that, or to go sit in different cars and see different cars, and I think that the product is very standard, and there's no, you know, uh, I don't know. It's complicated. With construction, people always have their foot out the door, and they can talk their way out of it, where with, like, in your example or Ferrari, like, it should be just as nice as the Ferrari next to it if it's cost the same amount, and, like, with
Mhm.
houses or a remodel, people, "Well, you know, we when we came in, this was this way, and we didn't expect this, and this house is different even though it's built by the same builder," and, like, that whole gray area, I think, lends itself well to people in our industry who just want to be making a buck and don't really care, but I think that that's why it's very important for guys and girls who are in this to kind of put their best foot forward, have those communication, have those conversations up front with your customers, and really ensure that everyone understands what you're selling. Um,
Exactly.
because it's hard to compare, and, like, even two houses next to each other built by the same builder, like, there's just different tolerances and different crews, and it's not an assembly line.
Right.
So everything is different, but it is true. You have to, like, gauge a product and a job by all things that were, taken into consideration. And it has to be budget, it has to be timeline, availability of subs, materials used. It can't just it can't even just be price.
Mhm.
Like, because you think price, and then somebody's like, "Well, you didn't tell us that you wanted to get this entire renovation done in a month and a half, and it's like a 5-month job."
Dude, like, who the hell was I talking to yesterday?
I don't know.
I know, and neither do I, obviously. Um, but that's what the premise of the conversation was, media and how at the end of a job. Oh, I know exactly who I was talking to. The project is a success, success, success. And it's promoted and it's put in magazines and it makes these headlines and it's blah blah blah. And I've seen firsthand what those projects look like or have been part of, you know, for example, for my own personal experience, like I had started a job. This was actually right when Ken was coming on board, oddly enough. And I was doing the demo and I was pricing out the job and I ended up being at $1 million on this job. It was a condo renovation. It was an amazing project. And the I submitted my price. It was supposed to be my job no matter what. And the architect said, you can't be $1 million. Like the client won't spend that. I'm like, all right, well, I value engineered a couple things. We're at like 980, whatever. And we didn't get the job. And it was there's a bigger story to this, but like it was it was supposed to be my job. I was already
Yeah.
doing the demolition. I was on the job site doing demo. The goal the conversation was if I do a good job with demo, like the job's mine. I did a great job. Like we were supposed to go right into construction. And they end up hiring a guy for $550,000. And I'm like, with all due respect, like he's not pricing the same job. You gave me a pricing drawing set that specified every single material, every single everything. Like this isn't me like making numbers up. This was me like
Yeah.
pricing it. And 2.5 years later, I got a call from that architect asking me to come and see if I could help him fix the work. So out of pure curiosity, I was like, fuck yeah. So I went on the job, I walked the job, and I'm looking around, I'm like, "Man," I'm like, "All right, I see," like, it's close, like, from a picture standpoint, like, the
Yeah.
work's not there at all, but we could probably come in here and fix it. And the architect looked at me and said, and I feel like I've told this story before, but the architect looked at me and said, "Hey, we've discussed this internally, and we decided that you know, if you help us get this place wrapped up, we'll give you the rights to promote it as your own project." And I was like, "Excuse me?" They're like,
Thanks.
and I was like, and I literally was like, "Thank you, but I'm all set, and I'm gonna leave now." And I left.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where I was going with the story, but the point is like, oh, the at the end of the day, that job got photographed. It got an award. It was in magazines, and it's like when you read about it and you see it it's beautiful. It's this great project, blah blah." But it's like, but no one knows the pain that the contractor went through by losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. The
Yeah.
pain that the client, the fact that the client decided not to pay half the contractors because he was mad about it. Like all this shit, right? Where it's like that job was a quote unquote success.
Yeah.
It's like definition how.
It and it is it's something to consider, and it's kind of, everything that you see, you have to take with a grain of salt. And
Right.
I mean, it even comes to subs and who you're hiring and who's
Oh
on
my
your
gosh.
job
That's a
and
whole episode.
everything else, because like that's just marketing, and that that's
Mm,
taking certain pictures that show, they create the narrative that they want them to. And that's not always the case, where even when customers like that's where I have customer who is like, "Why do you want to hire us?" And then I want you guys to do a deep dive into me, and come walk one of our jobs or walk whoever else's job that you're considering. Talk to those customers, not only like seeing the job, but what was this like? How livable was it? Was it as clean as people say, as the review? Like, look into that, because
yeah,
if I just showed pictures of my work, like that may or may not be accurate, like an accurate depiction of what that process is actually like. Like
dude.
I am I am putting out like accurate content for what I'm doing. Like I'm not bullshitting. Everything that I
Right,
say I do, but realistically, most people are bullshitting. Like
right.
it's all bullshit. And like you're marketing, you're looking to get more jobs, and you're just saying what people want to hear. And that's very scary. Like I would be scared shitless if I had to hire a contractor. I would
Totally.
be.
And
Like
dude,
I didn't like I
I
understand why people don't trust us.
dude, I got a video. I can't say what company it was, but he I was chatting with him over DM and he was walking this kitchen that he was about to rip out and replace. And it was from a big, big kitchen manufacturer, a cabinet manufacturer. And they had spent to the tune of like $260,000 on cabinetry for the kitchen, which is that's a premium kitchen right
Yeah.
there. And he's, like, sending me a video of all the details and shit that, like, they got away with. I'm like, "Dude," like, I looked up to that company.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like he's like, "Oh, and look at they did here." And it was e every like, the whole time my jaw was dropped, where it wasn't like, "Okay, I can understand, like, why they did that." It was like,
Yeah.
"Wait, how'd they get away with that? How'd they get away with that?" And to exactly what you just said is that they can portray the image that they want with the right marketing. And I think that's exactly what they do is they have great marketing, they have great video, they have like all of that, and you watch it and it's all beautiful and you love it and it's like you want to buy it, you want to own it. And it's like and here it is like on the flip side of being replaced. It's a piece of shit.
Dude,
You know, with that
it's
being said, I started a media company. We can do video for your no, I'm just kidding.
no, but it's very difficult to market yourself well. Excuse me. But it's probably more difficult to run your business well. So like
I would agree with that. I think
so
it's way easier to market well than
exactly. So
to actually to it's better to market good than be good.
yeah, and like if you spend the amount of time, marketing yourself, if you split it 50-50, like you're going to be a successful company because you're doing a good job marketing yourself. Like
Mm,
to build a business based just on reputation without marketing yourself well, like you have to do really good work and be in business for a really long time, because leads, lead generation, a lot of that is based on how well you're marketing yourself. And like if you do that well, sometimes the work doesn't even need to like it doesn't need to hold up. Like you'll get the jobs, you'll get the leads, you'll get the people, the phone will ring for the people that you want to do the work, but like I that's just not the way that I work. Like, you do a great job of doing both, running the business and marketing yourself. But, like, for me, I've always my main priority has been, like, I'm only gonna market the way that my business actually is, and I don't want it to be bullshit. I want the people to call me on it, and I want the customers that are extremely discerning. But, like, I don't know, man. If you got really good branding and you marketed yourself well and got a good photographer and, like, created a great narrative around your company, you could do a damn good business, and,
I
it's
know.
pretty sketchy
It's
and it's
crazy.
pretty scary.
It's crazy,
I know. I mean, a lot of people do it, and it's it's easier than having a good reputable company. It's
right?
easier to
Totally.
market yourself and depict yourself as somebody who's legit than actually
And
just to
and
be
and
legit.
and even some of the biggest, like, even some of the biggest where it's like, I'm like, "Man, that company's got it." Like, I love their stuff. I like and I'll talk to someone like, "Dude, no.
Yeah, that's why I'm like,
They're
just go
they're"
walk somebody's job.
right.
That's why
I
I'm
know.
always like, just go walk somebody's job. In the middle of the job, cold call and be like, "Can I walk your job?" You don't even have to cold call them. Like, they'll walk you through mid-job and think that everything's perfectly fine and normal, and you're like, "This is a shit show." Like,
Yeah.
this is not what it looks like in photos. This is not the
We're not helping our industry right now.
sorry, but, like, that I mean, for me, I'm looking at it as, I had a hard time in business having confidence in what I was doing, charging what I was doing with the market that I had, and I started walking jobs, and I started seeing what all of these, in air quotes, like, big successful builders
Right.
who are getting, working with the architects and the designers that you wanna work with, and I started walking and, they had the budgets, and I started walking these jobs, and I was like, "My work's better than this." And,
Right.
like, for me, seeing that was not and even having this conversation is not to shit on other people or shit on our industry, but it's more so for those guys and girls who, like, don't think that what they do is up to par, or that, everyone they see on Instagram has this massive booming business, that they're doing such great work and they have so many employees and they have shirts and vans, and it's like, yo, be concerned with your work, go walk jobs, see how you stack up to the quality of work and the experience, and that's how you can measure and gauge yourself, not what
Yep.
you see online.
Yeah.
Because I think that you may surprise yourself and you may be stifling a lot of your self-confidence and self-esteem and business esteem, because you see what you think other people are doing, and that's not actually what they're doing in real
I would
life.
agree with that, and, like, and then when you do find the guy that's doing it just as good as he's promoting, like, that is who you look up to.
Exactly.
Where it's like, when you look up to the wrong people, I think you take the wrong steps in business or in life, where it's like, "That's what he's doing, I'm gonna do that." Where it's like, if it's a facade, you subconsciously are taking the wrong steps.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, totally agree. Like, develop relationships, figure out who you can come and walk a job for. I feel like Tyler, you and I are gonna get the DMs. Hey, you mind if I walk your job? It's like, yeah,
Um,
no problem.
yeah, let me know when you
Let
want
me know.
to. But before we wrap up, we gotta give some love to Doug, right? I feel like we do the podcast and everything else. And Doug
So
is, like, behind the scenes all the time.
Doug has held us responsible
Yeah,
through for the last 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. No, more than that.
yeah,
I don't even know. So yes, Doug Duval, we love you. Um, I hired Doug full time at NS Builders for video about 2 years ago. I stole him away from corporate America. Prior to that, he was Puffin Media, and we decided him and I basically sat down and was like, dude, we got to do this for like more people. Podcast production, video production, social media strategy, et cetera, et cetera. So the other business that we started one was Motif Media, and Doug is a partner on that. And um, yeah, it's cool, man. Like, I'm excited for Doug. He is he's such a talented dude. He is so driven, and when I asked him why he gave up Puffin, I'll never forget, he was like, "I just hated running a business. It
Yeah.
wasn't what I like to do." And I was like, "Well, I like running businesses." And fast forward, you know, 3, 4 years from when we had that conversation, here we are. So
It's cool to see even, the progress and the growth there, even on your end. Um, I mean, obviously Doug's end as well because he's the one, behind the camera,
mm,
putting all of this together. But I know, when you were bringing him over full time on your end, and he was probably either looking to offset or you were not looking to, you know, be responsible for all of his salary, where he was doing work for other guys and girls. And it got to the point where you're like, yo, he's too good and he's making these other people look too good. Like, I want him just for me. And you figured out how to make him just for me. And you're now at the point where it's like, you know what? He needs to be doing that. Like, you're right back where you were before. He's like, he
yeah,
needs to
but you
be
know what?
doing this
It's
for other people.
but but I think I'm so excited about that because I get to be part of it and because I genuinely enjoy it. Where it's like, there's no doubt that when we launched on 1/1 for both these companies, we were totally not expecting as much demand out of it.
Yeah.
We should have been more planned. We should have more of a structure, a plan in place to make sure that like we knew how to, answer questions and we didn't. And someone literally parked diagonally on the street over there. And Motif Media was like was we had uh, 50 people reach out like, "Hey, we're interested." It's like, "All right, what are you interested in?" The full shebang. And we're like, "Oh, okay." They're like, "We want brand strategy, we want video creation, we want full YouTube series, podcast, and we want consulting." It's like, "All right,
Yeah.
well, let's put this together."
It sounds
So
pretty typical of you. So
well, I
right,
mean, now I
right
ha
up your alley.
but now I have Doug to help. But no, like you're like I was getting at is, um, you're right. Before it was like when Doug was like solo by himself, making a builder look exactly like me through video, where I'm not saying I was the standard, but like he had that's where it started with the building side. Now, yes, that's exactly what we want to do. We want to help other people build brand strategy and a digital presence. And I think that, it's just fun
I mean,
to
it's
be
also like maturation. Like,
hmm, right.
it's a few years later. You guys have established yourselves. Doug has established himself in business, in life, like
Mm,
personally, professionally. You guys understand that your hands are full as is, and realizing that, expanding a business and giving other people opportunity, it's not going to stifle your
no
growth.
way.
Um,
Collaboration over competition.
yeah, and like I think that, that's the type of thing where it's like it takes some learning and some growth and some maturing to realize, that there's more to offer than what you think you have. And it's cool to see, it's like coming full circle. And now it's like, yeah, let's offer our services to more people, and kind of grow this thing. So it's exciting for Doug too. I know Doug is behind the scenes. I don't have like a ton of interaction with Doug other than typically just sending him like smart ass text messages in response to whatever he sends me. Um,
Well, in all
but
seriousness, if you got like anyone that's listening, let's give a shout out to Doug. Head over to at Motif Media on I think I got that wrong. Hold on. Let me make sure I'm
it's a new
getting it.
company.
It is, but I at
They
Motif Media Co. on Instagram. Shoot him a DM. Let him know how good of a job he's doing because he is the one that keeps this podcast going, produced, uh, on time, on schedule. If sometimes it's late, but that's it's probably
yeah.
our fault.
It's definitely our fault. If it's late, it's because, like, we didn't get him what we needed and then
Right.
ignored 3 text messages from him
Yeah. It's like,
asking for what we needed.
"Hello? Hello?"
Yeah. So,
S
he's the professional in this relationship.
Speaking of which, we are over 1,000 ratings
Are
on
we?
yeah, and I'm
Damn.
pretty sure it's because of Utah.
I've been getting a few DMs. They're like, "Finally made my review."
So,
Sweet.
got one, it says, "Short review," and it just says 5 stars plus 1.
That
Literally the whole
works.
review. Um, and I'm gonna read one. Wow, gentlemen, the episode with Joe Kelly came at such an opportune time for me in terms of my personal and working life. Once again, you guys are Once again, you guys and your guests come through with a dynamic mix of business, personal, and just plain humanity. Every week, you reaffirm yourself as leaders and mentors with conversation and mindsets that encourage thought, exploration, and personal growth. My thanks to you. I actually really liked Joe Kelly's conversation, especially when it started getting deep and he was like nervous to do that.
Yeah.
He was like, "All right, so we're going there." I'm like, "Oh, we're definitely going there,"
Yeah,
because
that was fun, and I didn't know who he was, believe it or not, until the podcast, so it was like going into that cold, and I was like, "Alright, I can get down with this."
right.
Yeah, it was sweet. I didn't ever look into, like, what the feedback was with that podcast and everyone, but I enjoyed it, and that's all that matters.
Oh, so speaking of Joe Kelly, we had asked you guys what other podcasts you listen to,
Oh, yeah.
and
Did you get
I'm gonna
results?
I did, I got a ton, and I'm gonna have
Via D
I'm not
email,
I am
DM?
no, through Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on one second, let's see if I can pull I wanted
So
to
did
pull
you
up a
set
couple
up a
of
poll on
I
Instagram?
did, yeah.
This is smart. You know how to work this stuff. I don't
Hmm,
use Instagram to the most of its capacity.
I'm not able to see the answers, so maybe I didn't save them. Alright, we'll come back to that. So, yeah.
We're gonna have to send that poll back out.
Yeah, we'll send that poll back out. There was a lot of a lot of construction related ones. Joe Rogan, I saw a few times. Um, all of the construction ones I saw on that list. Yeah, we'll throw that poll back out. But you guys, honestly, like we appreciate you posting us on Instagram for the episode, but post us, talk about what you want us to dig into, but also stuff outside of the industry. The conversations that you like. This conversation actually went completely different than we had originally planned today, but that's I think, in my opinion, when these conversations really are valuable, and I think that people, I like to hear what you guys want to talk about. What you guys want to talk about inside the industry and outside the industry.
Yeah, truth be told, we had an email come in from Nolan was his name?
Nolan, yeah, I
Nolan.
have it pulled up.
So, well, we
We're gonna have to save this because
we tried to record this podcast a couple times prior to this and had some technical difficulties. Doug was not around to get us back on track. So it is 10:11 p.m. Eastern Standard
Saturday.
Time on Saturday night, and I was just sitting down on the couch for the first time, and like my wife, in quotes, was like, "This is the first time I've asked you to sit down and watch a TV show in 8 years since our daughter was born." Um,
And I
and
text you.
and Nick texted me, he was like, "Yo, I can record now if you want to record." So I was just like, I was turned off for the night, and that probably came out wrong, turned off for the night while I was just talking about, like, sitting on the couch with my
Poor
wife.
Rachel.
But, yeah, so I was, like, shut down for the night, and then I got a text from Nick, and I was like, "I'm not re-recording the podcast that we've already tried a couple of times from Nolan's email, so I just need a little bit of break, but we're gonna get to Nolan's email, so thank you, Nolan. We've already recorded your podcast a couple times, it just didn't actually record."
Yeah, if you guys wanna dig into a topic, info@themoderncraftsman.org is our email. You can hit us up on Instagram. And as always, a big thank you to our sponsors, Duration Millwork. So durationmillwork.com. That is your Boral, your new favorite siding and trim. They manufacture Boral siding, moldings, more cool stuff. Hit them up on their website, durationmillwork.com. Make sure you follow them on Instagram. And also Reno Run
Beep beep.
podcast. We got to get that made, man. Podcast.runorun.com/the modern craftsman. Let us pay your delivery fee. Head over to that website and we'll take care of your delivery fee for your order. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.